now that I'm painting again, I went ahead and posted something on Facebook. And I said, I'm taking commissions. And gosh, it wasn't but a day or two later, I got a phone call. Someone in DC said, would I be interested in doing not a documentary, but like a legacy series of maybe 5 or 10 paintings of President Carter. And it would be from through his lifetime. As this Carter series continued, and I started to see a person that these people just loved and respected and spent a lifetime working with this person, you have to respect. If you get to be with someone for 40 years and you've chose to be with that person for 40 years, they must be doing a lot of awful nice things for you to want to be there, because you're going to see them on a good day and a bad day. And you're there for 40 years. That says a lot about that person and their belief and what they're after and trying to help. So my goal was to show that person. My goal was to show someone of faith, which is already against a lot of the culture, someone of faith who stood for a belief, even in times when politically it might have been easier to do something else. And I admired that and I respected that. And that's what I was searching. I was looking for something that would show that. The next thing I noticed was the thing about him, about a man of prayer. And I kept coming back to that God was his center, and that was where he kept getting his focus from. And I started delving into some of the drawings that way. And you start to see the sketches and the drawings going that way. Originally, I was given images that I thought looked really neat and cool, but after doing the drawings and even actually a painting, I realized, but everyone has a good and bad side. Just because you have a great photo, it may not look like them or feel like them. So even though it matched them and it looked like them, it wasn't him. So each time I did something, I kept feeling like something was missing. And that made me keep diving in for more and more. And then there were more sketches that started to emerge. I started doing drawings and paintings of the area of plains to know what the area was like, to see what that was affected, being there at sunset, sunrise in the morning. The sunrise in the morning, when it's a 2.5 hour drive, means you're up early to be there at sunrise, or an hour before sunrise. Eventually, as I kept doing more and more of the drawings, and some of them I did over and over again. I probably did 3 or 4 of the hands drawings, different sizes, different ways. The next step was looking for the portrait that ended up being this painting, and it's the same one, but a different size, a little smaller, at the Smithsonian. It was really, when push came to shove, though he's married, he's called the president. I think you're called Mr. President when you're in office, and you're called President Carter or President whoever the rest of your life. But Mr. President is the current president. The bottom line, when push comes to shove, it's on your shoulders and you're the last one. And I think that's what led me to this painting. I needed him to feel alone, by himself, and against the system, and as a non-polished person. And that's the reason for the certain brushstrokes and the feeling. The darkness is also to have that uncertainty of the future and what would happen, that things aren't always rosy when you're standing by yourself. Things don't always go the way you want it to go. And I did like the amount of contrast of how light it is and how dark, because that sets the psychological message, how bold it is, how powerful it is. So there's a huge impact that the figure, the face, and the background play to make that happen. The next decision was, which way would he face? Would he go from left to right or right to left? And this makes it feel like he's alone and by himself. So I kept doing these. I started this Plains, Georgia. We'd go at sunrise and we're driving, and I would do these landscapes in the plains, and I would do his brother Billy's gas station I painted, and I would just do other things and other drawings, and I play with them different ways and different sketches. And then all of a sudden, they gave me this image that I wanted to use, And I'm using this image and it was amazing, but something was missing. So I painted it again. And I get halfway through and I realize it's not big enough. So I painted it bigger and I realized now the color's not right. So I did it again. I painted that painting 6 times. Do you know you can't tell the difference between 3 of them? If I took a photo of the 3 and cropped them and you didn't know the size was the only thing different, they're identical. They're that finished, they're that polished. But the size mattered. A little too big, he was presidential. A little too small, he wasn't as powerful of a person as everyone who has spent their lifetime with them see him. The biggest question that popped up was, why would people stay 20, 30, 40 years with one person? And surely you see them in a good and bad day, and yet they stuck around. So with his good and bad days, they continued to want to work with him. And it made me want to know more about that person. So I started asking them questions. And the simplest question to ask, if you're looking at this chart here, is the plane and recession, simplicity, complexity, open, closed, composition. And I did 2, 3 charcoal drawings. I did them again. I did some more journaling. We went back to Plains, Georgia. We met with Jill. We interrogated her with the art mapping for 5 hours of questions. I mean, I literally brought my laptop and she answered questions for 5 hours. And I had to say, okay, lines that are parallel to the page are called plain and they evoke calm or peaceful. Or do you want diagonal, which is recession, for action? And I showed her pictures of both and she said diagonal. Instantly, she knew nothing about art. Now, she's a great photographer, but she knew nothing about the structural things in art. And she knew instantly which principle and tool she wanted to use in this painting. So I love the unfinished, I love my own painting. I love the unfinished strokes, especially up here, where it's all sort of being brought in. The blue is to harmonize. There's flesh tones in the hair to make it look thinner and older. And then the unfinished brush strokes in places that goes with the unfinished part of his face, the unpolitician person. I'm just going to show up, here I am. I'm going to wear jeans and a flannel shirt, you know, and that's a neat thing to do it. I'm a big fan of Monet and broken color. So everywhere within the painting, it's not one stroke that makes a color, it's 20 strokes that make a color. So if I put red down, you know, there's a gray, there's a pink, there's an orange, and it's a combo of 30 colors that make it look like that painting. Even along the edges, you see the red in some places, the blue in other places. Leaving the weave of the canvas and just rubbing it lightly to get the texture of the material. So it's so funny. I'm after the texture of the material here, but not on his face and hair. So you're sort of like flipping, when's it important, when's it not? In the beginning, it's kind of daunting. Here you are doing a president's portrait and you know where it's going to hang, or these ideas of where it's going to hang. And all of a sudden now, it's very easy to shut down. Will it measure up? Will it be good enough? So when I started this journey of journaling my stuff, what happened was, if I just answered one question at a time, that one question then was all I focused on. Is this open or closed composition? If he reads left to right, everything's going well. But to make us go from right to left means you're bucking the system. You're like a salmon swimming upstream. So if I'm just focused on the one question at hand, then I'm not entertaining the thoughts in my head that says, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. Because I'm one for 20 years who was one of those artists who never finished a painting. Because if I finished, it would have to be measured up. This painting was finished 4 months before it was due. And then I spent the last 4 months just looking at one stroke at a time, deciding, do I change this? Do I not change this? And it would be finished when it was finished and not before. Well, as we were looking at the painting, I remember one of the assistants, his name is Ben, and he said, gosh, this needs to be in the Smithsonian. And I'm thinking, well, that wasn't on the radar, but it sure is now. I'm all for this. He says, I'll take care of it. Well, oh, this is exciting. But then COVID hit. And now I had my hopes up. My painting was going to be in the Smithsonian, and now it isn't. And then it was after COVID that I called the Carter Library and I said, hey, you want all these paintings and sketches that I've done? What do you want? That everyone has what they want. You want the rest of this stuff. And there's a lot of it. And I was talking to her and she says, that this needs to be in the Smithsonian. And she made a phone call. And that time the director was Dorothy Moss. And to me, it sounded like, or unless she's just very polite, and I think she is, that she was excited about getting it. Because when we dropped the painting off, her assistant that was picking up the painting said, oh, we're so excited to get Jimmy. It's like on a first name basis. It was so funny. So it's kind of weird dropping your painting off at the Smithsonian. It's a strange feeling. It really is. And it's just special to have someone, that you're hand delivering. You're driving from Georgia to Washington, D.C. to hand deliver a painting. And we didn't leave it in the car. We took it into the hotel room at night. So funny. But when it actually happened, I'm not sure if anything really changed in my life. It's been a slow click, little at a time. I would never say I was an artist, but now all of a sudden I'm starting to say I am an artist. Now all of a sudden, when I look back at being 28 years old and being arrogant, saying I can make it more realistic than Corot. Yes, I could. But what I missed was Corot didn't want it to be realistic. That part I missed. And I now know what art's about.